All right. Good morning, Doug. Happy Liberation Day.
Yeah, I guess it's happy. We'll find out. We don't really know yet. All I know for sure is it's a beautiful fall day here on the farm. So
Certainly is.
I'm
Certainly is.
anxious.
There's a lot happening in the world, and you gave me a list of this topics that it stood out to you, and I think the first one is the escalating tensions with Iran. And what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
Well, we really don't know what Trump is going to do because he blusters a lot. But he's said that, well, he's already bombing the Houthis, who have been designated as a terrorist group. But are they a terrorist group? They're a group of Shia rebels. They're not even the official Yemeni government. They're a rebel group against the Yemeni government that are allied with Iran, but they're not terrorizing anybody. They've simply said that since Israel is terrorizing the Gazans, that they wanted to do their part to stop Israel. And that means cutting off boats going to Israel. And so that's all they're doing. It's as if they were a real state recognized by other states. I suppose they could declare war on
Hmm.
Israel. Then would they not be a terror group anymore? But they're not a terror group. They're
No, but they'd be a rogue state that needs a regime change.
Yes, of course, a rogue state in need of regime change. And what I'm afraid of is that Trump, I mean, I wonder if he's acting. I don't think he is, but he's acting like he suffers from what the shrinks call bipolar disorder. Uh, he's unpredictable uh, and inconsistent in any way. Well, he's always flown by the seat of his pants because he doesn't have any philosophical core whatsoever, as far as I can tell. But all right, so he likes to threaten countries with they'll be bombed like they've never been bombed before, or words. That's a phrase close to that he loves to use, like has never happened before. So he makes these big threats. He's not Louis the 14th that he can do that. Before you bomb a major country, and Iran is a major country, like it or not, I thought you had to get a declaration of war. In fact,
Well, it's been a
how is it
while since that's been necessary.
the Yemeni, look, Americans don't think about this stuff, but the Yemenis, and I'm not pro-Islam, I'm not pro any of these people over there, but where does he get off bombing a country just because he doesn't like their and we don't have a merchant marine. We don't have any ships there except for Navy ships, which what the hell are they doing there? We don't have any interest there. So it's like we're a puppet of Israel. And I wish Israel well insofar as I wish the Gazans well. I wish there's nobody I can think of out there that, I really hate, but this is he does this stuff just because he thinks it's a good idea at the time. I mean, am I missing something here?
Well, I think the problem I have with it is he was going to be the peace president. That's exactly what he campaigned on.
Oh
And
yeah.
you could just be bluster. I mean, his whole discombobulating approach to things like puts people it puts people on the back foot, and then it could be part of this negotiation strategy. But the problem is that there is real buildup of armaments as if we are going to attack Iran. With the B-2 bombers and um, what's it called? That island that they're on, Diego
Diego
Garcia.
Diego Garcia.
Right. And also there's this guy I follow on YouTube, and he talks they just monitor all the military flights. And so they've been dropping off a lot of armaments into the Middle East recently, and it appears that there's a lot of fighter jets being flown over there because they basically do the air-to-air refuel. Aircraft are still have their transponders on, even when the fighter jets do not. So, there's the threat. He's prepositioning military hardware to back up the threat, and so
Yeah.
that makes it seem like it's not just bluster.
Yeah, so I guess he thinks he's Louis the 14th, and he's going to teach the Iranians a lesson for really no reason at all. This is Israel's problem.
Well, the other thing is that he's demanding that they basically sign some commitment to give up all their, nuclear ambitions. But it's the same sort of agreement he wants that he tore up in his first term.
Right. And why the Iranians? Because why didn't the Indians get that kind of an order, or for that matter, the Pakistanis get that kind of an order, or for that matter, the North Koreans, or for that matter, the Israelis? I mean, and who's the next country that might decide, government, I should say, not country, because the country doesn't decide, it's the government that decides that they need nuclear weapons because God forbid you get crosswise with the U.S. You have no effective means of defense unless you're also nuclear. So it's very, very dangerous. Anyway, so bomb Iran, and but there's other things that he's doing too. It's that these indirect tariffs on Russia. Have you followed that closely?
Not closely, but what I understand is he's threatened. I think he's referred to them as secondary tariffs. So basically, it's not just that there's if other countries are doing business with Russia, then they essentially because if Russia's bypassing sanctions somehow, then would tariff, as I understand it, or penalize the other countries that they're doing business with. Is that right?
That's what I understand. And that means in the case of Russia, since we don't have any trade with Russia at all at this point, anybody that is trading with Russia will suffer. And of course, that means India and China. So Trump has said that he's now from being friendly with and trying to communicate with Putin, which is always a good idea. It's better to talk with people than not talk with them, especially if you both have nuclear weapons. So now he's saying he's pissed off at Putin and they're not talking anymore. Well, who knows? All we know is what these people report.
Right, and
But
he said he's pissed off at him in part because he has delegitimized Zelensky, which I think Trump did a fair amount of that himself not long ago.
well, not only that, but my understanding is that in 2022, the Zelensky regime passed a law that said no Ukrainian can talk to a Russian. Certainly nobody in the Ukrainian government can. So this is actually a law that prohibits Zelensky from talking to the Russians.
Hmm.
So this is all completely, in addition to the fact that Zelensky is a nothing nobody. He's a degraded little uh, you know billionaire dwarf. I'd really like to see that investigated, exactly where he got all that money that was revealed in the Panama Papers years ago. So it's the whole thing is a dog's breakfast. But by if he puts these secondary tariffs on Russia, then that can only piss off the Russians, to use Trump's term, and the people they trade with, namely the Indians and the Chinese, biggest and best among them. So, but there's today, who knows what they're going to announce? But the I'm thinking there must be something good that happens, and I understand that the Israelis and the Vietnamese have dropped all their tariffs in response to these threats from Trump. So it makes me think that, well, maybe he's not schizophrenic after all. Maybe there is a plan, because if everybody dropped their tariffs, the world would boom, quite frankly, because you put tariffs on, you're in effect putting yourself under embargo. I
Hmm.
mean, you punish a country by not trading with them. And if a country puts tariffs up, so you can't trade with them, they are in effect self-embargoing. So maybe there will be
Yeah.
a fallout to this. It's said that India is going to drop all tariffs in response to this threat from Trump, which would be huge for the Indian economy. I mean, to trade for them to be able to trade for the place could actually boom. So I always try to look at the bright side, of course.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, but the whole we'll have to wait. I can't wait to actually see what the actual plan ends up being today when it's finally revealed. And it's actually amazing how there haven't been leaks about it at all, which is it's very weird, for something like this not to have some leaks about what it's going to be. But as I understand, it's like reciprocal tariffs. That's part of it, but it's not just that. It's also other things that are non-tariff penalties or trade barriers. It can get really complicated. I mean, if China dropped all of its tariffs on U.S. goods, I don't think that the U.S. would roll back all the tariffs on Chinese goods still because of these non-tariff barriers. So it's hard to see a simple solution with all of it, but it would be great if you got rid of all reciprocal tariffs. That would be wonderful for everybody.
Yeah, well, I feel like the little girl who sees a pile of horse pucky. Uh, what is that joke? And she figures there must be a pony around here someplace. So there's a bright side to these things, perhaps. We'll see. The
The other
other
thing
thing,
was Malay. You wanted to talk about your
yeah,
favorite
right.
Malay.
You know, I've become a little bit disenchanted with Malay, and I feel bad about the fact that there haven't been any major announcements from his government about taking out the chainsaw and doing anything major now for months. And that made me ask, well, why is that? And then I thought, with all the good things that he's done for Argentina, and they're absolutely wonderful, they're spectacular, I'm wondering, is he losing momentum for some reason? And once he's lost momentum, God, anything can happen. But, I looked at this like, for instance, the first thing that set me back on my heels was this was this was 9 months ago at least, when Argentina bought 24 F-16s from Denmark for $340 million. And I asked myself, why does Argentina need 24 F-16s? Are they going to have a war with Brazil? None of this makes any sense. Well, you can say, well, you need them to protect our economic zone 200 miles out into the Atlantic. Okay, but you don't need 24 F-16s for that. Uh, and I thought Argentina had no money. So they paid $340 billion for these planes, and they're very expensive to maintain and train the pilots and all the rest of it. So what is that all about? Well, we've never heard anything more about it. Um, and then one of the centerpieces of his election was he was going to abolish the central bank. Wonderful idea, but he hasn't done it. Now, it's true that inflation's come way down in Argentina, but that's only because the central bank is still there and it's still printing money because the money supply, which is solely the responsibility of the central bank, really, has doubled in Argentina in the last year. Big improvement from what it was doing before. But
Well, that
so
would
he hasn't
imply
abolished the
inflation
central
should be
bank.
ramping up again, wouldn't it? I mean, inflation should reemerge if they've doubled the money supply.
Well, who knows what the numbers really are, because historically you can't trust any numbers that come out of Argentina, frankly. But inflation should be dead, dead, dead. And the central bank should be gone, and all of its employees should be fired. Uh, but he's got these reptiles that were working for the central bank, still working for it, hanging around. I don't know what's going on, what the internal politics are, but I find it disturbing. And related to that is that some months ago, Argentina shipped its gold reserves to Europe. I can't recall exactly where or why. The only reason for the why would be as collateral for a loan or perhaps to rent the gold out for interest someplace. But wait a minute. In a world as debt heavy and as politically loaded as this one is today, you don't want to ship your gold abroad where it can be held ransom. If you have gold abroad, you want to bring it home, like the
That's right.
Germans tried to do and still have not succeeded. Am I right?
Well, they got half of it or a portion of it at least back in 2016, I believe. They requested it in 2013. They got delivery in 2016, if I remember right. And then, but they've recently started to wonder where the rest of their gold is, and to be have a feeling of well, not totally secure, I guess, in the fact that they still have something like 1,200 tons in at the New York Fed. So this just came out yesterday or the day before, them starting to raise concerns about the location of it. So yeah, the world is becoming very concerned about where their gold is, and it is bad timing on Argentina's part to be sending it who knows where. And there really wasn't any clarity about it, like why, or they just did it and it was fine. They didn't feel like you needed to explain it to anybody, or
Yeah, and I was convinced that Millet was a genuine ANCAP who understood Austrian economics and so forth. Uh, he should have been taking action to integrate gold into the Argentine economy, make it available for the average man to use, start circulating gold coins, the rest of this type of thing. He did just the opposite, shipping it to Europe, and who knows if it'll ever come back. Uh, and then that's compounded by this large loan. I don't know how much Argentina owes the IMF now, but it's a significant amount, I believe. And he's looking to borrow another $30 billion from the IMF. And for what reason? I mean, if you're going to get the state out of the economy, what is the state going to do with $30 billion of borrowed money? Spend it on something? But wait a minute. That's something that the businessmen and the people of the country should do, as opposed to have it borrowed money allocated by the state. So, in fact, if I was Malay, I would have said, sorry, we owe you all that money. I didn't borrow it. I'm very sorry about it, but we're not in a position to repay it. So we'll get it back to you eventually. And, and do what third world countries always do. Meanwhile, drop all the foreign exchange controls and this type of, which Argentina still has. This is insane. So I'd like to sit down with one of his economic counselors sometime, which I guess I can do when I get back to BA, and get an actual explanation about these things because it's very, very concerning. Uh, Maybe less concerning or maybe more concerning. I'm not sure. But he said that he wants to join NATO. Wait a minute. NATO should be abolished. It served no useful purpose. It's been an active danger and provocation for 30 years. It's turned into a self-licking ice cream cone. So why would he want to say that he wants to join NATO? A really worthless organization, counterproductive and costly to be a member. And then he goes on record actively supporting Israel and the Ukraine. I mean, you can have your personal opinions, like them, don't like them, doesn't matter. But if you're running a country, the country should be neutral. It's, not want to actively support these other countries, which are both to use the word, which is overused, problematical. So it's, anyway, I'm concerned about Malay. Has he been corrupted by being in office for only a year?
Or, well, certainly it does appear he's lost momentum. Like that seems clear. Because we were seeing at first all kinds of crazy announcements, that was coming out with the, like I said, chainsaw to the government, to the state, doing lots of reforms. Kind of like, Doge came out right away and was doing all this stuff. And, now a lot of that's been put on ice by judges. So, yeah, when you lose momentum, that seems like it'll be hard to regain it, I think, once it's gone.
Yeah, enthusiasm on the part of the public who are happy to see all these horrible parasites in the government be fired, and that they'll lose enthusiasm, and then these deep state members will, just as they're doing with Trump and the US, will counterattack. So it's not good, especially when we consider that the next step for the economy is likely to be a major downturn, and the same for the stock market. And when that happens, what these governments always do, and all the people demand the government do something. And all they can do, of course, is print a lot of money and slap on regulations on things that people decide they don't want, like higher prices. So put a price per control. So this is, I think there's plenty of reason for concern out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just some economic statistics I saw recently in terms of, debt becoming a big burden on people. Apparently 46% of student loan borrowers, uh, have missed payments and now have credit scores under 620. The average job search is now over 21 weeks. Apparently, FHA, there's this big scandal going on with FHA. I don't know if you have heard about that, but apparently during the Biden administration, they made it really easy they didn't want to foreclose on people. So what they did is they have a program where the servicer still got paid and essentially it was just tacked on to the end of the loan. And it was kind of automatic. So the state or the taxpayers have been essentially paying mortgages on many borrowers. And there were some it was something like out of 50,000, the stat I heard today was 55,000 people that in their first year of having it were missed 2 consecutive payments. So like they got the loan and within the first year, they'd failed to make 2 consecutive payments. And out of those 55,000, only 9 of them ended up going to foreclosure. So they're not foreclosing on people. And they're just kind of funding them, in these houses under these FHA loans. And apparently it sounds like a lot of them were, to get an FHA loan, it has to be your primary residence, and then you only have to put like 3% down or something. And apparently a lot of investors, were basically using that, lying, saying it was a primary residence to get it. And then they weren't even making payments on it. So there's that's there. And it's so, but apparently FHA says there's 11% of all their loan book is officially delinquent, but, it could be a lot higher than that at this point.
Well, that would indicate that if these things default, that the FHA as an entity could go bankrupt. And I guess the government would have to bail them out since it's a government agency. So, yeah, stock market goes down, unemployment goes up. People are going to blame Trump, and I understand because, one of the definitions of a depression, other than a period of time when most people's standard of living drops, is a period of time when distortions and misallocations of capital are liquidated. And it really means when all these stupid loans are defaulted on and things that shouldn't exist go bankrupt, the real wealth will still be there. It just has to change hands. And that creates a lot of chaos in the market when things are as highly regulated and taxed and leveraged as they are today. In addition to these things happening, Trump is putting in new distortions in the marketplace. So I don't know. I really wish him well. And I'm still so happy that the Democrats weren't elected because the situation would be near hopeless. Anyway, we're moving towards a civil war, like it one way or another. These people hate each other more than ever.
I think that's true. One comment about you saying a depression, like the real assets are still there, but don't you think that so many of our assets are actually fake? They're all credit derived, and that won't
Yeah,
be there. All the credit
that,
goes away.
that's a very good point. I saw something the other day, believe it or not, it was on one of our own publications. It indicated that in the last generation, most new assets have been intangible as opposed to bricks and mortar and airplanes and real things. They're like software, and which is valuable, but it's a huge portion of everything. So yeah,
Yeah, and or I think for a lot of public companies, it's goodwill. It's booked on their balance sheet as goodwill. But what does that mean exactly? It's very loose, even what that means. And that could be disappear overnight.
yeah. And even with things like goodwill, like Coca-Cola, company that everybody's supposed to love. But wait a minute, Coca-Cola is an old, tired, big company that's everywhere. Where's the growth prospect, especially in a time when, thanks to Bobby Kennedy, and it is thanks to Bobby Kennedy, I'm grateful for him, all the high fructose corn syrup is being looked upon askance. Maybe Coca-Cola is not what it used to be, is a solid, growing company anymore. Talk about goodwill, which might vanish.
Yep, I think it can. I think that's one of the intangibles. Will just disappear if there's when these distortions are rectified. All right. Well,
Gold, we haven't even mentioned gold. I don't know if it's at a new high today or not. Have you even checked? I don't check every day. The last I looked, it was like 3,080, something like that.
oh, it was, well, I don't know about today, but it was over 3,100. So
Oh, did it?
3129. Spot price is 3129.
31.29. And still, these gold stocks don't move.
Not much anyway. They're moved a little bit, but like the GDX and GDXJ, those index funds at least, those are up, substantially year to date. Actually, I can find it for you. So
Not,
they
but not nearly what they should be if people were involved in these things. Look, in the old days, these little gold stocks would it was not unusual to see them go up 50 or 100% in a day. And that would happen for days at a time.
well,
So,
uh, my guess is it's just because retail is still not into the gold story at all. Like the most of this is it's like it seems like it's central bank buying is driving it up, you
yeah,
know. And so as soon as
that's
retail
what,
gets in,
and I understand that. If I ran a central bank of India or China or Russia or any country, I'd ask myself, do I really want to hold all these US dollars when the Trump regime has obviously got to reduce the value of the dollar to make things happen in a number of ways in the US? Yeah, let's dump these dollars. But what are you going to buy? Somebody else's phony baloney paper? No, the world is going to go back to gold, I'm afraid. And as you pointed out in recently, it could go it could go up 10 to 1 from here.
it could get ridiculous,
Could
which
get
just means the
ridiculous.
dollar is going to shit. That's that's the downside of gold going up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And most people own dollars, and uh, it, it could get rather scary out there over the next couple of years. Morning in America, we had it, but it only lasted 6 hours.
That's right. All right, Doug, we'll leave it there for now. We'll have details on the, Liberation Day, the results of that later in the week when we talk again.
And we're going to talk to Frank Schuster this Friday too, aren't we?
This Friday, yeah, Frank Schuster is joining us.
Yes, that will be interesting because Frank is very smart and very wealthy and very well connected, uh, often with people I don't particularly like, but he's a good guy, and I can't wait to hear what he's got to say.
Yeah, he'll have a very good perspective. I mean, he's been doing a lot of traveling to the Middle East, and I think he was in London last I heard. But I know he was in Saudi Arabia not long before that. So he's got, he's connected to the movers and shakers of the world, and certainly will have a good take on exactly what's happening right now.
That's right. He's the founder and he runs the International Crisis Group. Uh, so he'll have a lot of things that he can say, in addition to being a genuine major player in the markets.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so that'll be back. We'll be back on Friday for that. In the meantime, Doug, have a good week. We'll talk to you then.
Thanks, Matt. You too.